I might need this.
Is this the whiteboard thing?
Oh, shoot. I need
Is that the cable you need?
Yep. Plug this into here. And I'm going to plug this in to here. I think the Andrew sees some. I forgot that the audio is on. How's it going, everybody? Give us just a moment.
We're having technical difficulties.
Technical difficulties. And that there.
Hey, Andrew. Oh, I miss doing this.
I don't want to sign into Microsoft Whiteboard. I just want to use it.
Well, you need to figure yourself out. The audience is waiting.
No, Microsoft, if you respected my privacy, you wouldn't require me to log in. Let's go. All right, we'll give that a shot and see how that does.
See, if you had an intro. Andrew's just coming off of live code happy hour. Oh shoot, I should have booze at this.
Welcome, 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 Andrews. And everyone else out there, we're
back.
We're back.
We're back.
We're fumbling this.
It's okay.
It's all right.
It's all right. We look good doing it.
Absolutely.
Which
it's a good thing that we don't have a camera so they can confirm that.
Which you're getting ready to look at changing that so they can see your pretty face when we do this.
Maybe.
I'm going to wear a mask, like the big bird long nose plague doctor mask.
Oh, jeez.
Yes, that's what I'm going to do.
Don't do that.
Why? I'll peck you with it.
All right, so the vote tally came in. For those unaware, we took a poll on LinkedIn for what to do next. And the votes were pretty much overwhelming. 50% Paige says camera. We're working on it, especially for the parts where we end up
just running our mouths.
Running our mouths, yeah. But wear a Bane mask like the U.S. athletes.
Yes.
So
change it up and do like cosplay masks and be a different person every time we do this.
I think I'm going to leave that one to you. So the poll came back, and over half the votes, or close to half the votes, somewhere in there, went to Docker and Node.js with ServiceNow. Now, I think I'm going to try and work in the DevTools for the folks that voted for DevTools, because I think I can mix and match both of those and get away with it. But this one's going to be a little different from usual because a lot of it's going to be off-platform.
Wait, no, this is for on ServiceNow. What do you mean off-platform?
Yes, platform adjacent.
Heresy?
Well, at least it's not, Salesforce.
Oh, yeah, that's true. So, for those of you who are not aware, you want to explain that one, or do we not explain that one?
I don't think we have to explain that one. That one's pretty self-explanatory.
Oh. Well, I mean, okay, fine.
So while I would love to just dive in head first, there are a lot of people that may not even really be aware of Docker. I know that you've heard me mention it, Sarah.
I've heard you talking about it with other people that know these things, and I'm like, whatever. I make widgets and websites that people enjoy using. I don't need all this outside abstract Cody nonsense. So
You
whatever.
you might think a little bit differently
I will let
as we
you
go through this.
attempt to change my mind, but if it doesn't have a UI, like code it in CSS and get back to me, dude.
Well, all right. Well, let's start with that. And
Yeah, wait.
See what we can do.
Speaking of, are we like not going to talk about like the new hotness?
Oh,
Are we not talking about that?
I just had that up there for a place filler. It was nice to look at, but
Oh my
yeah. If you haven't noticed, we do have a new brand, new design at Code Creative, thanks to Unfold.
Yes.
A design agency that supported us in building this out and helped us set it up. They've given me a lot of different brand assets that I can use for like PowerPoints and stuff. So I am hoping to use a lot of the content stuff to speed up some of my creation processes and maybe get a little more content out there. And then there's also the newer section, Notebook.
Your handy dandy.
My
notebook.
handy dandy notebook.
Where you've had young children too long.
Which basically is kind of like my own personal wiki, I guess. This is actually coming out of my physical notebook where I log all this information out. So you'll see a lot of notes right now from the UI builder, and I think a couple of them I made sure, and I got to get this on more of them, but ServiceNow Ninjas has a lot of really great content on that. Paige says she wants one. Yeah, I'm loving this whole idea of having Google index my notebook for me. Mm-hmm. It just seems so useful. And
your handwriting's a lot better on this digital version too.
Hey, you leave my kindergarten handwriting alone. All right, so with that...
Andrew notes that they did change their URL. Have you reflected
that? That's right. I have to change it because...
they got slapped. They got slapped.
Yeah. What are they now? Andrew, do you remember what they are? I don't remember what they are. I'll let y'all know as soon as somebody hooks me up with the feedback. While we're waiting, we'll go ahead and get started down the... Paige just loves the idea of being able to store the snippets without having to do a fancy blog post. Oh, yeah. So many drafts just sitting there because they aren't fancy. Yeah, I agree, Paige. That was the biggest reason for Notebook is I found that with the Code Creative Lives, it made making videos so much easier because I didn't care about the post-processing. I just jumped in and accidentally clicked on the wrong thing in OBS and realized, a few minutes in that Andrew could hear us talking. And, I don't have to care about it. It just goes out there and everybody gets to see it. And Notebook is the live of the written form. So I love it. Fast, simple. Love it, love it, love it. I got sidetracked again.
I'm going to put silly words in the middle of your Notebook post when you're not looking.
Don't you dare.
You were just talking about the different parts of the new site. We've got a new brand mark. We've got a new
I think
layout.
that's all I really wanted to share on it.
Oh my
I love
gosh.
it. I think it's so pretty.
It's so awesome. I'm so thrilled with it.
I love it. And I get to use cheeky images.
Yes, you do.
The little throwback to the rocket when I did the first Code Creative relaunch.
Yep.
Love it. Okay, so Docker and Node.js.
So what is Docker? Is it like an app or something?
Andrew asked, was it expensive to have it done?
Yes.
Yes, it absolutely was expensive to have it done. Sarah and I had been working on doing it ourselves for the better part of, I don't know, a year.
Yeah, and
we weren't making progress on it, and I really wanted to make the brand a little more cohesive, bring it together a little better. One of the things that I've noticed is that the brand really resonates with people. Like, marketing works. And it has... Code Creative as a brand has really opened my opportunity to be able to help people. Folks have reached out to me that Otherwise, I would never have met. And so it was definitely expensive, but totally worth it in every way from my standpoint.
Oh yeah, and I will say like design is, and especially branding experts are very much a you get what you pay for sort of situation. I am a graphic designer by trade, but I do not focus and I am not practiced at branding design. So I can do it, but I struggle with it. I don't have the finesse that these guys do. I've known Peter Del Tondo, one of the guys at Unfold, for years. And I've seen his work, I've followed his work for years, and I just knew he was the guy that you needed to have do this. You needed someone that was going to put the expertise and the care into your brand that you have all these years, and the money was very well spent.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, in the intro of the project with them, which was kind of weird because I got to be the customer for a change, and it's been a while.
It was an interesting experience to watch.
Yeah, story time. So at the very beginning of the process, they, talking about the whole design being an expertise all on its own. Branding, even outside the design aspect, or outside of the drawing and physical aspect, just the design, the research, and everything that goes into it is also an expertise all on its own. And I got to learn that firsthand because they asked me if they offered to reduce the price for me if I did some of the legwork myself. So I would have to provide them with, and I forget the exact term, but the brand strategy, that's what it was. If I did the brand strategy, and I thought to myself arrogantly, it's just writing. I can handle the brand strategy. Yeah, write me up for that discount. I'll take it. Yeah, okay. So they send me over a workbook, and I get 2 questions into this workbook, and I turn around and I send an email back. I said, I changed my mind. Take the discount off. I'm going to pay you guys to do this. I can't handle it. So, so it's
their guidance was well worth it.
Their guidance was well worth it. They did a much better job than I ever could have in every aspect of it. So yeah, to get back on,
it's pretty. It was.
Here.
This was a worthwhile.
It was
segue. You can't not talk about it on your first live since then. But anyway,
that's true. So before we dive into the Docker side, I actually want to dive into the Node.js side first. So Node.js lets you run JavaScript on the server. And
is this like a type of JavaScript like AngularJS is that we're used to?
No. So AngularJS is a library. React is a library. These are all libraries that run on JavaScript. Normally you run JavaScript in the browser, right? Mm-hmm. And then ServiceNow lets you run JavaScript on their server. They do it with something called the Rhino engine, which is a Java package that interprets JavaScript.
Whatever, Magic Glide Record.
Yes, Magic Glide Record. Node.js is basically the engine inside of the Chrome browser. Mm-hmm. But it has a bunch of magic, I think it's written in C or C++, but it's got a bunch of magic library bindings that let you access files with JavaScript. It lets you, are you watching?
No, I'm not watching on my phone. I'm sorry. You're trying to explain things. I'm trying to pull it up so I can comment and with the people.
Y'all, she's watching the video stream as she participates in the video stream.
No, I'm trying to do the comment thing. Anyway, you were saying, so AngularJS, these other types of JS are libraries, and Node.js is like a pack of lies because it's named like a library, but it's not.
It's an engine. It lets you execute JavaScript through the terminal on the server side.
So then is AngularJS and the other libraries like the gas in the car? If this is the engine?
Yeah, I guess you could say that in a roundabout way.
Maybe it's the headlight fluid.
So basically, if you come in here and go to inspect, and I drag this guy over, if I go to console, I can run JavaScript in here, right? I can say console.log something. And I hit enter, and there's an engine that processes that JavaScript and spits out the text something.
Yeah.
Well, the V8 engine is what actually runs that. It's what Google calls the V8 engine, and it runs JavaScript. Yes, I know.
Yay, car analogy.
Node.js uses the exact same engine, and instead of running this console.log in the browser, I can run it in a terminal. Let's see if I've got one stood up right now. No, I don't have one running right now. But basically, it will let you run that same JavaScript just with access to files, access to a bunch of different things server-side that JavaScript normally doesn't have access to. So you can run web browsers. You can run, or not web browsers. You can run websites. There's Ghost.js, which is like WordPress, but running on Node. And there's all kinds of packages out there for it. It's the most popular JavaScript engine out there, aside from maybe the browser. But it's one of the most popular server-side languages is JavaScript running on Node.js.
Okay, so do the Node.js thing, you download it and then use it in the VS Code?
Yeah, so I think I actually have it already installed. So let me bring up terminal. Let's see, npm help, I think, something like that.
This is terrifying.
So npm node package manager is how we install things.
This is the thing that we did for the custom components with the
Yes, custom, all of the custom components in the new Now Experience framework is built using Node.js.
This was like the most terrifying experience of my entire life.
That whole tool is built on Node.js.
Yeah.
In fact, I think ServiceNow's entire new Now CLI, the Now command line interface, the whole thing is powered by Node.js behind it. So
why not just use Node.js? Did they need their own little special thing?
Well, they wrote packages on top of Node.js so that you could run things in the command line. So when you do the Now CLI to create a new Now Experience component, there is a Node.js module that ServiceNow wrote behind the scenes that actually goes out, fetches the scaffold project, builds the scaffold project, sets it all up for you, initializes it, and sets it up so that you can actually start writing a component. There's all kinds of code behind it that's required to make it work. And the Now CLI uses Node.js to accelerate that process.
Okay.
It's magic code that does a lot of things.
Magic code that does a lot of
things.
things.
There you go.
Okay. Andrew says, I think Node.js is how you run the components locally to develop them, but then they run on the browser when you publish them to the platform.
Yes. So let me see if I can find this real quick. Now, where's my Now component? Where's my Now components folder? I have it somewhere. ServiceNow projects. I'm trying to find it. Where is it?
I don't know.
Maybe I've got it in a workspace.
You're supposed to have this stuff like ready, dude.
I don't have anything ready. I'm just making it up as I go along. Let's see. Let's try open recent. Web dev, web prod. Now components. Okay. So if you look in here, when you do the Now CLI to build a component, these are kind of the folders that you get.
Yeah.
And if I come down here, you'll see this package.json, which is Node.js's entry point, basically. This is what describes the Node.js application. And you can see that it uses ServiceNow, CLI archetype, component architecture, library These are all of the libraries that ServiceNow wrote that made this stuff work. You may also see down here Snapdom. Now, I don't think that one is actually part of the default.
You've like said that word so many times, and I still have like the vaguest understanding of what it is.
So, Snapdom?
Yeah.
AngularJS is the library that powers Service Portal, right?
Yes.
It handles taking the templates and turning it into the HTML, right? Snapdom is similar. It's much more simplified, much more straightforward, but basically it allows you to write templates that gets converted into HTML. Snapdom is the dinosaur that's a bit kinky, Andrew says.
So, I believe Andrew was in Australia, right?
Yes.
So, when he says kinky, does he mean the same thing that we mean when we say kinky? I'm just wondering. Language barriers, man.
Language barriers. It's English.
No, there is a distinct difference between Australian English, American Northern English, American Southern English, and British English, and Scottish English is like a whole nother thing, okay?
Well, Andrew has confirmed. Yep, same thing.
Nice. Okay, thank you.
All right, so back over here, this Snapdom library is not there by default. So you can see that ServiceNow has a UI renderer Snapdom.
Yeah.
That's theirs. This is what I added. And this is one of the reasons why knowing Node.js can be helpful, is that you can actually manipulate what packages are available to your project. So you can expand your project, and there is more that you can do with these now components if you understand the inner workings of how Node.js packages are set up. Because this component here is actually using a Snapdom renderer, and I'm actually hijacking the Snapdom renderer and executing it the way that I want it done, I guess you could say.
You just gotta have it your way.
I'm injecting my own personal web components into it.
You're turning McDonald's into Burger King is what you're doing.
Basically what it means is that if you prefer Vue.js, if you prefer React.js, if you prefer one of these other libraries and you have a component you want to import in, you can actually do that. You can actually wire it up.
Oh, okay. I would just like to note that in the commentary, we're still discussing
what does kinky mean in the US?
The language barrier and the word kinky, and I want you to know that now I have like this great image in my head of a stegosaurus with like black leather and a whip and stuff, and yes.
Just
you're trying to be all serious and teach us things, and you know my job is to absolutely do
I am well aware.
And everybody in the comments is on my side.
Absolutely. Oh, gosh. I don't even remember what I was talking about now.
You were explaining why Snapdom is there and how you're basically taking it and making it run your way, as an example of the fact that you can like inject the things that you want. Yeah,
so like basically you've got the now CLI that the now CLI basically executes a series of packages that builds this component and sends it to ServiceNow and installs it in your instance. Mm-hmm. So that's the power of Node.js, is you don't have to copy it out. You don't have to copy a compiled component out of Node.js, take it to ServiceNow, put it in there manually. The now CLI, powered by Node.js, is doing all of that for you. The code has already been written. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the power that Node.js gives you. Like I said, it lets you execute JavaScript outside of the ServiceNow platform, but still on a server. Andrew says the packages are for code reusability mostly. You can find stuff that other people have made to save you time. Yep, exactly.
I thought that was a great way of putting that. It's kind of like how we put Bootstrap on a website and use that framework so we don't have to build out all that on our own.
Yep. So to get started with Node.js, you just go to nodejs.org and you can download either the long-term support version or the current. For most people, you are going to want the long-term support because it's more stable. Let's see. Carlos says about CLI, when you are in a new laptop and download your project from GitHub, npm install is beautiful because it downloads all of your project packages. Yes.
Nice.
So we will go over some of that, but basically this package.json is all these dependencies here describe what this application requires to run. And there's a command for the Node CLI where you type npm install, and it goes out and grabs all of these packages and installs them on your computer.
So you've got those on hand when you're building the things,
right?
So your stuff works.
Right. Okay. So Node.js is very descriptive, as opposed to having to issue commands in a certain sequence. You describe what you want the result of your package to be, and then you can execute the command npm install, and it just runs. It does the magic thing.
I like it when code does the magic thing. I don't actually have to understand it.
So that is Node.js. Now, Docker is a different beast entirely.
Is that an app that does a thing?
So first of all, we can go to Docker. I think it's docker.com. Yeah, we can go to docker.com, and we can hit the get started. And depending on whether you are, depending on what platform you're on, you can select Mac, Linux. Ooh, Mac with the Apple chip. That's the M1. I am on Windows, and I don't believe I have this yet on this computer, so I can kind of walk through it to show you what this will look like when you set it up on your computer. And hopefully it doesn't blow anything up for me.
That's mighty presumptuous that I'm going to set it up on my computer. Oh, you're going to make me do this as like a walkthrough demo thing on live, aren't you?
I don't think so. I think I'll spare you.
I don't know. I might benefit from the exercise.
All right, so I am installing it, and basically I'm going to take all the defaults. Just take the default settings and let it run. So this is installing quote-unquote Docker on the Windows machine. So it's not... So this is going to be a little complicated. I am going to switch over to a drawing.
I'm about to say, are you going to draw me a picture?
I'm going to draw you a picture.
Draw me a picture.
Okay. My drawing is terrible, so...
That's okay. I'll critique it.
All right. So normally you've got... Normally you got your computer with the little power button, right? Okay.
What's a door?
And already?
Yes.
Already?
No, it's okay. Computer with power button. Got it.
Okay. So then on top of that, you usually install an OS, like Windows, right?
Yes.
Okay. And that is how you are used to using computers and how most people are used to using computers. And that is how the world makes sense to you, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in server world, things are a little more complicated. So we actually have the ability to, with the right software, install multiple operating systems on the same computer. So let's say that we wanted to run both Windows and Linux on the same computer. Now, one option is just to install them side by side on the same computer, and
you just pick which one runs on startup.
Right, you pick which one you want on startup.
I've seen you do that.
But what if what I really want is both of them running at the same time? What if I want two computers running on one piece of hardware?
I tell you, you were greedy.
Okay, well, one of the options is to run a virtual machine.
Yeah, the virtual machine is the method I'm familiar with.
Right. So normally what you would do is you would have an OS that's called a hypervisor. Okay.
Like a hat with
It is.
top that's
It is
excitable.
it is an extremely lightweight operating system designed for running virtual machines. Okay. At that point, I can run multiple operating systems on the same hypervisor. That is multiple computers. So I could run 2 Windows machines off of the same computer. That would allow me to run different applications. So let's say let's say that I wanted a browser testing environment, okay? And I needed to test back to IE7. I can't have IE7 on my on my Windows 10 machine. So I would run a Windows 10 OS and maybe a Windows 7 early XP. I don't know how far back we'd have to go to get to 7. But so I could set up multiple different testing environments so that I could have each browser that I wanted. And I could access each of them just the same as I would my normal OS.
Wouldn't it be easier to just fire the client that has IE7 as a requirement?
Well, yeah, I mean that's an option.
No, I see the
That's an
point. It
option.
allows you to test. It allows you to test in different environments, especially if you don't have like a Mac and you need to test on like Safari and Mac and all that kind of stuff.
Andrew says he recommends an operating system level package manager too. Homebrew for OS X and Chocolatey for Windows. This lets you install any application similarly to how NPM works. I've used Homebrew on Mac. I haven't used Chocolatey on Windows yet.
Chocolate. Sorry, I need a snack.
Now, circling back over here, the problem with this approach is that every OS takes up hard drive space, resources,
Slows it
whole
down
9
and all
yards.
that.
Right. Slows it down, but also takes up hard drive space, like physical hard drive space.
Has
So-
performance implications.
Well, let's say that an operating system was made up of 4 files. It's made up of way more than 4 files. But
Okay.
let's say, for the sake of argument, each operating system is made up of 4 files. If I installed 3 different machines that were all running Windows 10, you would have 4 copies of the same exact file running. Taking up space, taking up resources, you know.
Do they run into each other, figuratively speaking?
No, but it's all consuming resources
Yeah.
on your hardware. It's taking up hard drive space. It's taking up RAM. It's taking up CPU time. So all 3 operating systems are always taking up resources. So what Docker did is Docker said, instead, let's run one machine
To rule them all?
and we'll run our hypervisor or main OS. And then we'll run a Docker layer on top of that. On top of which we can run any OS as long as it's Linux. Because most servers run Linux.
This is why we need the camera, because you have to see my stunned silence and the like.
Why Linux?
That harkens back to that whole. Well, what color can I get a car in, Henry Ford? Any color as long as it's black. Okay, so we got our little computer box and our normal OS, which in our case is Windows, and then you have a Docker on top of that, which is like your layer, and then you put your different virtual machines on top of that.
Not virtual machines, and this is where things get interesting. So Docker, actually, this OS would be Linux, and all of these would be Linux. And what that means is that where file A is the same across all 4 machines, the base and the 3 up here, there is only one copy of file A. That is one copy in RAM, one copy on hard drive.
So all the top ones like borrow from the main copy down here, so it's not running the same file multiple times.
Right. And so basically what you do is whenever you need something different, file B, for example,
It's
you,
only running
you
the different
overwrite.
stuff.
Right. And I forget the term that they actually use. Andrew says Docker for Windows can now run Windows VMs? That's new. That's cool. Thanks for that info. Check out Rome's Docker-based mid servers. Oh, yes. I'm very thrilled about that one. ServiceNow now has mid servers in Docker containers. And that's what each of these OSs here would be called, is a container. Now the superpower of Docker is that much like Node.js's package manager where we've got all the dependencies detailed, you can do the same thing in Docker, okay?
Okay.
So right now, your computer is very different from my computer, right?
Yeah, mine's prettier. It has flashy lights.
But, yes. But I mean like the software that's installed.
Yes. Wait, no, it's not.
Do you have Node.js installed on your computer?
Yeah, actually, because we did the components
Dang it.
thing.
But do you have the same version that I have?
Oh, probably not.
See, so if I wrote a Node.js package on my machine and handed it to you, you would turn around and you'd be like, Trav, there's a bunch of errors. This is trash code. Go back and rework it. And
I live for the day I can tell you that you have trash code.
That's not hard. I open that opportunity quite frequently.
Yeah, but like it's syntax errors and then it works. Meanwhile, we won't even go there.
But so if you were to turn around and pass that same package back to me and I'd run it on my computer, it'd run fine. And I'd be like, well, I don't, what's your environment look like?
This lets you do like different environments so you can see where the issues are.
In Docker, you describe exactly what this container environment should look like. And so when I tell Docker to build that environment, it builds the environment on my computer the same way it builds it on your computer, the same way it builds it on the server box over here. No matter whose machine it's on, the environment is cloned precisely. And that helps maintain consistency for testing, for development. I could give you some of the Node package, some of the tools that I've developed over here, and I could send it over to you, and you could start developing on it without having to worry about whether or not your environment was set up.
So in ServiceNow terms, would this help with like version control to make sure that your components work on Rome versus Quebec versus things like that? Or?
So it's hard to say that it will do that for like the different versions on ServiceNow because ServiceNow versioning is still what it is and is still separate. But if you move some of your development off of ServiceNow, yes, you can get better version control, and yes, you can get a more stable development environment for things and a more stable testing environment for things. But there will be limitations because you can only emulate the ServiceNow environment so much.
Yeah.
Before you have something completely different from ServiceNow. So I'm going to flip back over while Sarah is doodling.
I don't know how to draw a fan.
That's your computer.
Yeah, mine has
yeah
fans
with the
on the
three big fans.
But mine has like flash. Oh wait,
Well,
you have, like...
mine has an HP logo right here.
No, it doesn't.
Well, my
Your
server
server
box does.
I don't look at the server. The only thing that... Oh my gosh, this is a glitter pen. Yes.
A glitter pen?
Yes. See, look.
No.
Oh, check that out. Yes.
That's pretty. I like that actually.
Yeah, you should draw with the glitter pen more often. More people would watch.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I'm going to take control back from you now.
But no.
I mean, you can still keep drawing.
Oh, okay.
We'll flip back and see how you're doing it a little bit.
That gives me a good understanding of what Docker actually is, though, and what it does.
We'll flip back and check on how you're doing in a little bit. You keep drawing.
Okay, I'll keep drawing. Can I put this down so I can draw with it?
So at this point, I have installed Docker. Dang it. It says I must restart. I don't want to restart, so we're just going to close. But basically what happens is... virtual machine. What is it called? What is their hypervisor? Hyper-V, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm gonna totally know that. I just learned what a hypervisor was.
I guess I don't have it actually enabled right now. That's weird. Usually I do. I guess I didn't install it on this machine. But basically what happens is when I install this Docker desktop, it actually installs a Linux virtual machine on top of my Windows operating system. So Windows is the hypervisor at that point.
Okay.
A Linux virtual machine sits on top of the hypervisor, and Docker is installed in that Linux virtual machine. And then you can use that Docker environment. So it's a little more complicated because you have that additional virtual machine layer. But in all reality, my server box where I am running my remote environment here, my web dev and web prod, both of these are set up the exact same way. I have Proxmox as my hypervisor. I have a Debian virtual machine on top of that hypervisor that's running Docker that gives me access to the containers. And what's really cool is if you have VS Code, it comes. You can install the Docker, the remote development tools, and you can manage all of it here. So this Docker environment is actually on a different computer. It's on my server box sitting next to me over here, and I can manage that machine remotely from Visual Studio on this machine. So that's kind of the basic gist and the basic breakdown. Now, with that, I want to dive into kind of how to set this stuff up. And I'm going to use GlideFast Labs and what I've been doing there as an example. So if you see this folder here, this folder is sitting on my server, as I said. So this is connected over Secure Shell. SSH, which is stuff that if you decide to have it on a separate server, you will need to learn and understand. If not, you should be able to connect to your local environment, to your local Docker environment, the one that we just installed. Because VS Code does work with your local Docker environment as well, which is super cool. So, you'll see that I have this Docker file. And this Docker file sets up the environment that I was telling you about.
Yeah.
So it's going to run a series of commands. First of all, it's grabbing the Node.js, what do they call them? So if you go to Docker Hub, they have images. Docker Hub has a bunch of images. This image, Node 12, comes pre-installed with Node.js version 12 installed already on it. I think it's using Alpine Linux maybe. But bottom line is that it's already set up and ready to go. So what I'm telling Docker to do is to, from that image, use that image as a starting point. I'm going to make the working directory in that Linux environment this folder, user source app.
Okay.
That's just the one I chose arbitrarily. I think it might have something to do with how Node wants me to set it up. I'm going to copy my package.json, this one here, to that folder, which is /, run npm install. There's that npm install command, which is going to install based on that package.json. And then I'm going to copy my app, which is everything in this folder, over to user source app. And that's what that does. So no matter what machine you put it on, when I run this through Docker, it'll build the exact same environment. It'll build it the same on the Linux machine that I got sitting next to me. It'll build it the same on this Windows machine here. It'll build it the same on yours. And the way I do that is I use Docker Compose. Docker Compose takes a lot of the command line, command typey stuff that you have to do manually, and turns it into a descriptive format.
God.
So
awesome.
it's using YAML, which is kind of like JSON, but less text, no squiggle brackets, stuff like that. So you can see that in here I am creating a service called GlideFast Labs, and you will want to do some reading up and research on how these files are formatted. I maybe will go a little more into depth at some point, but right now I'm trying to get over this hurdle a little bit so we can get to showing what it can actually do. Build tells it to use this Docker file, the one in the same folder. The user is the node user. That is set up on that node image by default. Working directory, same as the one I said before. Volumes is kind of the hard drives, if you want to think of it that way in Docker. Volumes is like hard drives. So I'm setting up 2 different volumes, one for the app, one for node modules. I don't remember why on that one, but it was recommended in one of the tutorials I was following that to separate node modules out.
Probably just so it doesn't get confusing or anything.
But this little :: notation here is binding this file, this folder here, to that folder there. So basically, once this is up and running, anything... Andrew says our grocery delivery. How's it? Take care, Andrew. Take care. What was I saying? Oh, basically the folder in the Docker environment is bound to the folder on my server. So any change that I make to my application will automatically update in the Docker environment. That's a pretty important aspect whenever you're working on applications, is to make sure that you have a bound volume. I think that's the term they use. Otherwise, if I make changes to the files here, I would have to restart the entire, or rebuild the entire Docker environment every time.
Ew.
Yeah. And then I expose some ports, which in this case actually doesn't matter because I'm not actually exposing those ports. And then the last thing you'll see here is npm run dev. That is telling the node package manager to, first of all, this command is the command that will be issued once the environment is spun up. In Docker, if you do not have what is called a long-lived process running, your Docker machine will close right away. It'll spin up and it'll spin right back down again. So you have to have something long running. You can do a tail call on /dev/null, I think, is one of the hacks that folks use to keep it running if you're not running like a server. In this case, I am running npm run dev, which tells my npm to run the dev script in my package.json, which in this case is using rollup, which... Rollup?
There's a lot of moving parts here.
There are. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of stuff going on here. But when you see what it can do here in a minute, it's really cool. Really cool. So this is running my rollup server. Rollup is a build process similar to Webpack. Webpack is the tool that's used by the Now. React uses it in the Create React app, but also ServiceNow's Now Experience framework. When you build your component, it is using Webpack and Babel to transpile all the ES6 stuff you can do in the components. It builds it into a component.
Oh, okay.
So Rollup is a similar tool, but for my purposes, I like it better than Webpack. It was a little quicker to get it up and running.
Because Webpack's really, really heavy. There's a lot to it.
There was a lot to it. It took a lot of plugins. It took a lot of fiddling with. And for what I was doing with rollup, it just made more sense for me. You can see the packages that I have installed with it. I'm also using Babel. This is cool because you can actually compile from ES6, so you can use all the cool new ES6 stuff, but compile it to ES5, which basically allows you to use ES6 in ServiceNow today if you wanted to, with the right setup and the right build process and everything else.
Oh, that's nice.
I'm also using Jest as my unit testing framework. Those were just ones I was testing. Those will go, or actually I think I'm using Mocha. No, I am using Jest, I forgot. Carlos says he has a physical Linux for MVC program, but inspired to study Docker. Carlos, Docker is really cool because it gives you a lot of flexibility to run a wide array of environments side by side. I have really enjoyed using Docker. It spins stuff up really fast. So basically, the npm run dev is going to run this dev script in my package.json, and it's going to execute this rollup and trigger the watch so that it rebuilds. That'll all make a little more sense here in a second. So with that, let me show the magic. So first, I am going to blow this off, and I just blew off the wrong one. That's all right. Oh, I blew off all of them because they were all stopped. Well, it's a good thing that Docker allows you to rebuild. So I just accidentally deleted all of my containers, including the one that is the Hugo build environment for codecreative.io.
Oh.
So
that's not good.
Yeah.
How do we fix that?
So fortunately, everything I need is in these folders. It will rebuild the build, and it will rebuild Docker will rebuild the environment exactly as I had it before. And no, this was not planned. That was completely accidental.
Dude.
So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to open my Code Creative folder first in an integrated terminal, because you have to use a terminal to use a lot of this stuff. And just like with the GlideFast Labs, you see the Docker file and the Docker Compose. Mm-hmm. This one is instead using Hugo, because Hugo is my build.
Your thing.
Yeah, that's my static site generator for Code Creative. And you can see that the Docker environment is different from the other one. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do, not sudo nano.
We're going to run #fixit.
Docker Compose up. And that is going to tell Docker, using this compose file, build the environment.
And it's going to bring it back?
So now you can see it creating Code Creative, blah, blah, blah. And now it automatically bound my local 1313 port to my server's 1313 port. So it's forwarding localhost 1313 to, if I come here, I can go localhost 1313. That's my development environment for Code Creative. You are now looking at the dev environment. Ooh. So if I came in here and edited the source, let's go to the themes, layout, index, and I'm going to change.
Carlos wants to know if you can do a git pull from your host.
I can. In fact, you'll see here momentarily, if I change that, you'll see test just popped up here. Oh. And you see all the orange over here. That is because I am running VS Code plugin. And so that whole thing is being tracked in the Git repository. And so any changes I make are tracked. And I'm going to change that back. Save it. And it comes back over here. So I have a live dev environment for this here. And what Carlos is pointing out is that if I have the Docker environment, or if I have the Docker Compose and Docker file in a Git repository, then I can do a Git pull to get that back, even if I deleted that on my local environment.
That sounds like something I need to do.
When you are using Git the standard way and not the weird way that ServiceNow has with Studio, you get a lot of really great backup functionality for folders, and you get multiple redundancies for protecting you from yourself, which
It's nice.
is really nice.
Apparently.
Yeah. So if I switch over to my Docker tab and reload, you'll see that I have Code Creative Hugo environment here that is running. And I can actually attach to its shell. So this terminal here is the terminal for the hypervisor box, for the server itself. But I can also attach a shell to the environment. So when I want to build, I type Hugo, which is the command to build the static site for Hugo. It takes all my templates and generates a static HTML website that I can upload. And so I should be able to run this without an issue. So it's going to build, and there it goes. But if I use the other terminal, the one on the host, I think I would actually have to stop this. So let's stop that. If I were to type Hugo in here, Hugo command not found. They're different environments. So I have one environment running Hugo, and the host environment isn't running any of that. It doesn't have Node.js, doesn't have any of it. So with this, I can actually spin up a version of Node 12, Node 11, Node 14, Node 16, you know? So like over here where it says that you got the long-term one at Node 14 and you've got the current one at Node 16, I can run both environments side by side using Docker. So with that, let's spin up the secret squirrel stuff. Open integrated terminal. And you see where it's at the GlideFast Labs one. I don't know why it's got my sudo nano going. Docker compose up.
And that's just like a terminal command, the same way npm install is and all that. You just have to know that.
Yes. So Docker compose up takes that docker compose.yaml and builds that environment as described.
How do you know it's pronounced YAML?
I don't. I'm assuming.
It's like a camel, but why?
So if I go to YML, it's YAML.
Okay.
They just really like that, 3-letter suffix thing. So,
okay, it's a YAML.
So it's a YAML. All right. So GlideFast Labs 1 is now up and running. So you can see here that I got that environment up and running. You can see what files are in it. So this is a separate server all on its own. You can see all the files that are associated with it. And now what I have set up here is really cool. So if I go to my, well, not my vendor instance, this is the GlideFast vendor instance.
Man, I got my pretty FastGov site in here.
So if I come in here, there's going back to the old, actually I wanted Storyboard, not StoryForge. So folks may remember the old Storyboard tool for mockups that I made once upon a time, where you can pin stories to the image. Well, I have started rebuilding that on top of ITBM. And this application is complicated. I mean, there's a lot of moving pieces to it.
Because so much of what you build is simple.
Well, So like, here's just the task service right there. Then you've got the Canvas service. Then you've got the server script. You've got the client script, which is a couple hundred lines of code. So I've got three different services here that it's dependent on, plus the client script. So you've got tons of code in this. And one of the things I've built called UI Flow has thousands of lines of code in a single widget. Trying to manage it is maddening.
Paige says it's super cool. And
thank you, Paige.
That UI is
I love
awesome.
this thing. I love this. I love it so much, and I can't wait to bring it to folks using ITBM. So excited about it. But with that, I wanted to do it a little bit better than I did last time. So this one actually has let me pull up Studio because it'll be easier for me to find it there. And StoryForge. All right, let's see. I have I think it's a JS include. Yep. I have a UI script. This UI script is compiled. I did not write this in ServiceNow. I copied it into ServiceNow. I copied it from over here. So basically, what I have here is here's the StoryForge folder right here. And you can see that there's a main JS module, and it is exporting create app, and it builds a store object, because if you followed any of my more recent widget developments, you will see that I use a Redux style store for anything of more than just the most basic complexity. I immediately go to the store. I know.
I'm learning it, and I've had many headaches learning it, but it's super cool.
But basically what it does is I build a store, and I return my API for the StoryForge application, which has a dispatch object, a subscribe object, some actions, and some selectors.
Do they ever have sales at the store of yours?
No. But if you notice, this create store function might look awful familiar. And down here somewhere, there's a create app. Where is it? Here it is. This create app function down here might look quite familiar. And but it also might look a little bit different, because what's this stuff up above? What's this get new state function? Well, if you look up here, I'm importing get new state in this module. Mm-hmm. I'm using ES6 modules so I can break my code up into tiny pieces. Mm-hmm. So all of these modules are sitting out here in these folders. So if you are, Sarah, you're more familiar with the store architecture I've been using, and if you're familiar with Redux applications at all, there's you dispatch actions, and then there is a reducer that builds the application state after every action is dispatched.
It's so easy. It's longer to code, but it makes your code actually very easy to trace and troubleshoot. And if you name your functions correctly and encapsulate everything in functions, it's so easy to find. And then you don't have one big function that could break for any little thing. It's like you're insulating everything from itself.
Right.
It's like, and I'm explaining it badly, but it is so flippin' cool.
We will more than likely get around to showing that off a little bit more and diving more into that one. I don't know if we'll do that in this series or not, but we'll see. So I'm going to add something to this. I'm going to add just a simple test function. And for the sake of argument, I'm going to use the ES6 arrow functions just to demonstrate all the cool features of this. I believe it is like that. It works. Okay, we'll save. And you'll notice down here that it built automatically. I don't know if you caught that or not, but it automatically rebuilt the library. So there is in here... where do I have it? Is it in my Docker Compose? It's not my Docker Compose. I had a configuration somewhere around here. Rollup config. that the rollup config describes the entry points and the outputs for how to build this. So the end result is if I collapse source and go to distribution, you'll see I've got a StoryForge folder here, and there's a bundle. So this has now rebuilt it. I'm going to copy this, and real quick, I'm going to come over here into the console, clear that out, and enter. We'll clear that out, and now I have a StoryForge object that has a create app function, which has a test function built on it, and it works.
Nice.
So adding that one little function down here and then saving it, it rebuilt. It took all of these ES6 modules, combined them all together into a single bundled package, and built that entire library. So now what would normally be thousands of lines of code inside of a widget, or maybe if you're lucky spread out over a couple Angular providers, now I can take this entire object, copy it, go over to this UI script, which is a JS include dependency, and I can paste it in here, save it,
And you're done.
reload my service portal UI here, because this is a service portal. I can come over here, and there is a StoryForge, and there's a create app, and a test function on it.
Holy cow, that's cool.
So I can, if I wanted to get really fancy, I could actually, because this is Node.js, I could build into the build process where after it bundled, it could actually send this file to ServiceNow and update this record automatically for me.
Oh, see, that's really cool.
Best of all is now that this is outside of ServiceNow and in a Docker environment, in a in its own separate, flat file as opposed to a database, now I can use a Git repository to stash this. I can now, one of the things that's always complicated on ServiceNow is multi-developer environments. When you have multiple developers trying to work on the same widget or the same scripts in ServiceNow.
Yeah, I mean, I was dealing with that earlier today. Hey, are you done in the thing
right.
so I can do a thing? And
Yeah.
it totally slows down your work.
Exactly. So that type of complexity in ServiceNow is actually really easy in traditional development. You just clone you have a copy, everybody gets a copy of the environment, which in ServiceNow would cost you
all the money
for the environments to do that in. And granted, sometimes you can get away with, if your company allows it, you can get away with using your personal developer environment to do some work.
Yeah.
And if you're using scoped applications, then you can merge your stuff back, and you can get some really good processes that way. I don't think you're supposed to do that. So, definitely don't say I told you to do that.
I will not say you told me to do that.
But especially in more regulated environments, I've done some work with some of the big banks, and their environments.
They're funny about, rightfully so, about what's allowed in and all that.
Yeah, with one of them, I had to log into a virtual machine that they owned to do the development work, and that virtual machine was locked down. You couldn't do anything in it except for what they explicitly authorized, and
couldn't even turn Minesweeper on, I bet.
You were not allowed to use your personal developer instance for anything. Department of State was like that too. Department of State was probably even harder because they
Are you allowed to talk about that?
I'm allowed to acknowledge that I did work.
Okay.
And yeah,
I'm just trying to. I would like you to not go to jail.
Good point. That is probably about the extent I can. The
They
environment,
were crazy about their environment.
The environment was extremely secure. It was an extremely secure environment, and they basically knew what you were doing at all times. They could detect anything.
To the point that it was annoying.
It was kind of annoying sometimes. It
But
was
you
cool.
enjoyed
It was cool, but it was also annoying. I did enjoy it. It was a really great project. 10 out of 10 would recommend. But yeah, so basically you get, Paige says we have 6 subprods and it's still not enough. Oh gosh, yes, Paige. It hurts so bad. And this is one of the things that I have found that is possible, that you can potentially extract some of the work that you would normally do directly in ServiceNow and separate it out. And this is a great thing that larger dev teams can start looking into. It's really great for UI because both Service Portal and the new user experience framework allow you to pull in external components.
Yeah.
So like if you wanted to, you could actually build, and I've done this with my own spin-off of Snapdom. I wrote my own version of it.
Because that's what you do in your spare time.
Well, I hate the library update game, where the libraries are no longer compatible with each other and I get stuck. And so I've just started writing my own libraries for everything so that the code is a little more controlled and I don't have to worry about...
You know what you got, and you don't have to worry about some guy saying, I'm bored with this.
Yeah, because that's the problem, is that a lot of these guys will change to, especially in the JavaScript areas, they will change to flavor of the week type stuff, and you're just expected to follow along with it. And the old stuff gets unsupported.
I like our trend of assuming that when a dev is doing something problematic, it's always a man.
I'll stick with it. I'll stick with that.
I mean, if we have to be equal opportunity, like that girl and her flaky JavaScript library that she won't update, I don't know, whatever. I would totally be one of those devs that's like, I'm going to do this super cool thing and do like version 1.2 that's really buggy but really awesome, and then be like, I'm bored, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, I know that feel.
So this
Anyway.
does get you outside of a lot of that,
Yeah.
and it lets you take a little more control. And I have you can basically take your preferred build method for building a standard web component, and you can embed web components within Service Portal and within the new UX framework. I have actually tested this, and it works flawlessly.
So if I can never figure it out, I can do it in both.
Absolutely. Now, one thing you have to keep in mind with that is that new web components are kind of flaky on IE 11. So if you do still have to support older versions of IE, it's always IE.
Yes.
Then that might not be as much of an option for you. But that's also one of the reasons why I wrote my own variation of the library and everything else, is because I was able to ensure that it works with IE 11, and actually it works with a lot of older versions of IE too.
Nice.
It's very friendly. But you can actually take those components and embed them, much like I have done here. So with this, thanks for joining us, Paige. Yeah, we're going to be wrapping up here shortly ourselves. But yeah, so if you look in here, you'll see this StoryForge create app. And then I have to do some fancy footwork to wire it into the AngularJS framework. And then I dispatch my initialize action, and off it runs. And basically, you can treat web components much the same way.
Nice.
You can wire it straight in. So this library here, this StoryForge library, I can actually embed it within a Now Experience component as well. I can use it in both.
That'll be nice as we start to see clients transitioning from one to the next.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so you get a lot of different advantages. First of all, you get the ability to use new ES6
Yeah, and that,
So,
I know people have been screaming about that for a while.
yeah, I mean, there's a huge problem in the ServiceNow ecosystem where folks are like, well, I went and I took this Code Academy thing on JavaScript
Yep.
and none of it works in ServiceNow, which hopefully we'll start seeing some ES6. I hear rumors that ES6 features are coming to ServiceNow.
That would be nice, because I tell you, that's one of the biggest hurdles to learning to script on ServiceNow is that all of the traditional code tutorials and all that don't apply.
Yep.
Because ServiceNow has got so many special things, and it's not on the latest version, and so that would be great.
Yeah, exactly. And so with this, you can take advantage of those new features and functionality.
Yeah.
You know, like you saw me do with the arrow function here.
Yeah.
And that's because I'm using Babel to transpile from ES6 to ES5. It's transpiling it down to something ServiceNow can use. So that's kind of a game changer for being able to do that. It's also a game changer for, like I said, being able to build larger, more complex code applications.
Oh, yeah.
And also,
having multiple people work on it.
Also, if you... Oh, I generated empty chunks. Sometimes things break. Let me put that back.
You broke it.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. That was kind of weird. But you'll notice here I can also minify, compress, and mangle.
Mm-hmm.
So like now it's a bunch of meaningless garbledygook.
It's all a bunch of meaningless garbledygook to me either way.
Ritesh asks, do you have a base library to build the app?
Is that secret scroll stuff?
For building which app, Ritesh? For building the StoryForge library over here, setting up the Docker environment, or are you talking about the app over here actually in ServiceNow? And I'll kind of keep going while I wait, because I know there's some lag in between. But yeah, so you can minify and compress that code, which for technology partners and folks that want to do a little more to protect their code, partners, you know, who want a little more IP protection around their preciouses, or developers that just want to prevent folks from messing up their stuff. The don't touch my stuff principle.
Don't touch my stuff principle enforces a lot harder when you can't understand any of what's going on.
It is. Just the library itself. No, I have not shared that yet, Ritesh. What I'm probably going to do, because this one is tied up into the GlideFast lab stuff, so there's only so much I can share on that specific one, but I do plan on building a separate code creative one that I will share out.
I'm gonna have to look at these too.
And it's all pure JS. All of this is JS being built on top of I'm not using, the only thing I'm using is rollup. All of this is pure JS. And I have written some of my own libraries. So like in the core here, you'll see the store object. And that store object is basically it functions very similar to the Redux store, but it's my own personal build, so I'm not dependent on everybody else's libraries. And I've just kind of taken to writing my own stuff lately because honestly, when it gets down to it, once you actually look at what some of these other libraries do, nowadays a lot of them are actually really easy to replicate the behavior, and they add a lot of bloat to handle edge cases and feature sets that are demanded by some specific group of developers.
They don't care about or need or whatever.
Libraries try to appeal to too many people, and they bloat the code base, slow the whole thing down, increase the complexity. And so I've started writing my own that do exactly what I want only what I want, and don't supply all of the additional features until I absolutely need them. And I found that has made my code much more stable in the process. I'm spending a lot less time going back and rebuilding off of
some edge case.
Yeah. All that annoying stuff has gone away. But yeah, so that is one thing that we can do with this Docker Node.js stuff is we can set up build tools. And this is very similar to what ServiceNow has done with the Now UX component build tool, the Now CLI.
Yeah.
That is set up just like this, just using Webpack instead of Rollup. But it does the same thing. And just like theirs makes a REST web service call to ServiceNow, we can do the same thing. Next time around, I'm actually going to take this to the next level by starting to look at those REST integrations, because basically we can essentially create a mid server using Node.js, and that is going to serve as the foundation for other tools that we can build using this Docker Node.js environment. So this was just like the intro course, just to get us started with
understanding like what all these moving parts do and why this is a good idea to explore.
Yep. So next time what we're going to start doing is we're going to take the concept that I started here in GlideFast Labs, and I'm going to build out an environment specifically for building more server-side type stuff. So instead of doing UI building like this, I'm going to build something that is more like a mid-server just built on Node.js instead of ServiceNow's, which is Java. And this is going to be largely based on REST integrations. But it is going to give us some magnificent superpowers because there's almost nothing you can't do with Node.js. The sky is the limit.
You really got to be careful with saying stuff like that, because you told me you could do anything on Service Portal, and I believed you, and now I build craziness and never tell people no.
Well, telling people no sometimes is okay, but you can still do it, is the point.
Oh, I do it. Whether or not it's a good idea is another thing.
Exactly. And that is...
I make it look good.
That is the one question I have not answered regarding what we're about to do with the mid-server stuff. I've always known I could do it. I've never bothered to ask if I should.
All right, yeah, there's a Jurassic Park lesson in here somewhere.
But we're going to do it anyway.
Oh my gosh. Back to that whole kinky dinosaur thing. You see how it all circles back around?
I'm actually really excited about this because the ServiceNow mid-server, of course, is Java-based. In Java, you have to compile everything. And I hate typed languages. They just feel constricting to me. I like the chaos and nonsense of the duck-type languages like JavaScript and Python. I just do. Everybody's like, but, well, typed languages will give you compilation time errors. And I'm like, throw me a runtime error. I got this. Let's have some fun. I'm okay with the runtime errors. It doesn't bother me. I'm used to it. I like the chaos. Don't look at me like that. I like the chaos.
You assume that I'm looking at you like that because why would you be okay with all that chaos? But really, I'm looking at you like that because I don't even know the difference between a runtime error and a compilation error and...
when you think you have an object, but you actually have a string?
That is the most annoying thing on the planet.
Type error. And you know how you don't really know because it just says, object whatever does not have this function.
Yep.
And you're like, what does that mean? Why? Why doesn't it have that function?
Yeah,
it's supposed to have that function.
I've moved from a bunch of like specificity problems in CSS to type errors in JavaScript, and they piss me off so much.
See, in strongly typed languages, it will tell you that you have a type error. It will tell you this line of code right here, you are using an object when you think you have an object, but you have a string.
That sounds glorious.
So it can...
However, you have such
Carlos says runtime errors are just for ninjas like you.
I guess.
I don't even know that it's a ninja thing. I embrace the chaos. I like the fun of it. It entertains me.
I'm hearing
to
you're
have
a
no
psycho.
idea why.
That's what I'm hearing.
The type errors bother the type errors in static type languages just bother me more. It might just be because I have to tell the computer up front what it is. I don't know.
You don't like to put your babies in a corner.
No, don't never put baby in a corner. Nobody puts baby in a corner.
No, I understand, but you also have built such a solid understanding of how JavaScript works and what it should be doing that you're able to more easily predict these kind of things.
I wouldn't go that far. Because
I would.
I still get stumped by the missing curly brace and missing semicolon stuff.
That's different. That's like syntax.
I still get stumped by the
my
type
syntax could
errors.
be perfect, but my code is just like telling fish to go to the store and get a triangle, you know?
If I have to think too much about the types, I get bogged down. Mm-hmm. In JavaScript, I can write just interfaces. As long as this object has this function, it's good. Mm-hmm. And I like the idea of programming to interfaces, and a lot of times I will find cases where I want to extend interfaces, and in most type languages that can get complicated and challenging and difficult and frustrating, and I don't like trying to solve language problems. I like trying to solve business problems. That's what it is. I don't like trying to solve language problems. And strongly typed languages tell me no way too often. JavaScript doesn't tell me no. It never tells me no. It does exactly what I ask it to do.
And looks at you with this sweet little look. Because it did exactly what you told it.
And it looks at me and it says, well, that was stupid.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I'm like telling my JavaScript to go smell the color 9, and then I get mad when it doesn't, compute it for me.
See, and I can handle that. If I told the computer to do something stupid, I'm okay with that if it chokes and throws an error. But when the language is like, yeah, well, you didn't use the right type for this, and now I'm sitting there like, well,
maybe I need to look into that, because that just sounds glorious.
I think you probably would prefer strongly typed languages, which, to that point, there is a language called TypeScript, which is JavaScript with strong typing. Ooh. And lots of folks in the JavaScript community have moved towards it, and Babel will transpile it to ES5. So using this style of build tool will allow you to also use stuff like TypeScript as well.
That's my type.
So,
sweet. Well, that's been a really good introduction to what Docker is. Do you want to see my little doodles that I did?
Yes. Let us circle back. So this was the outcome. We've got some JS. Yeah. We've got our kinky dinosaur. StoryForge over here. Looking good. I see you've made plenty of use of the sparkly glitter pen. You need a snack.
I need a snack.
Travis's...
That's my picture of your server
box. That's my server box?
Yeah.
My little stuff Travis refuses to clean up sitting on top of the server box. That is true. Ermagerd,
glitter pen. That's it. I was actually trying to listen. You were talking about a bunch of abstract stuff, so I had to.
Well, next time we'll get into some more.
We'll make it do a thing.
Yeah, we're gonna act. I mean, we did make it do a thing tonight, but next time. Next time we'll start making it. We'll start making it do some direct integrations with ServiceNow. And start making some magic things happen, which will hopefully also help make some of the ServiceNow experience framework stuff. That build tool might start making a little more sense to you.
It might. That doesn't mean I like it.
Well, it's a start.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining us, and have a good night, and hope to see you next time.
Have a good one.